HS2 and its impact on the Chilterns and the Colne Valley Regional Park. This map gives an idea of the first area I'll be talking about. The M25 between junctions 16 and 17 runs south to north near the middle of the map, and the M40 runs across the bottom. The arrow points to West Ruislip Station, where the route leaves the London tunnels alongside the Chiltern Railway. Beyond Breakspear Road South, it passes through the cut and cover Copthall Tunnel. Here we're looking east across the Chiltern Railway line towards the Copthall Tunnel North Portal under Harville Road in Harefield. Portal is just another name for a tunnel entrance and exit. The bridge on the left was the original alignment of Harville Road. It emerges onto the Colne Valley South embankment, continuing on towards the Colne Valley Viaduct. On the left, the Chiltern Railway continues towards High Wycombe and then on to Birmingham. On the right, the viaduct crosses the Colne Valley Regional Park. It passes over a number of lakes, the Grand Union Canal, the River Colne, as well as Moor Hall Road and the A412 North Orbital Road. The viaduct is 2.1 miles long and is now the longest viaduct in the UK, yet it would take trains just 40 seconds to traverse it. Here we're looking along the viaduct across the first of the lakes, Harefield No. 2 Lake. Hybrid sound barriers of transparent acrylic panels located above the solid section to prevent bird and bat strikes with passing trains. They incorporate black lines to ensure they remain visible to flying birds. There are robust curbs on either side of the viaduct, which are designed to deflect a derailed train. As the viaduct curves along its length, trains travelling at 200 miles an hour create enormous lateral force. Galvanised steel cassettes with a mineral wool infill are used for the absorbent parts of the barrier. The viaduct crosses lakes. The 80-metre spans form a sequence of low, slender arcs designed to preserve the landscape views across the water. Over land, the spans are shorter and the piers more conventional. Here the viaduct crosses the Grand Union Canal and then on across Savay Lake, one of the premier carp fishing lakes in the UK. The viaduct then crosses Moor Hall Road and on across Corder Lake. This is looking south as the viaduct crosses the River Colne. Further south you can see it crossing Corder Lake and Savay Lake. You may just make out the Copthall Tunnel at the southern end of the viaduct. It runs alongside and then crosses the North Orbital Road. This is looking north towards the north abutment, the northern end of the viaduct. Landscaping and planting below the viaduct continues. The route approaches the Chiltern Tunnel South Portal across the newly created Colne Valley Western Slopes. Here 127 hectares of former agricultural land is being restored to biologically diverse grassland. Over 50,000 trees native to southern England are being planted. This is the only section of the route in Hertfordshire. The 3 million cubic metres of chalk removed during tunnelling have been used, and such is the size of the project that it has increased Hertfordshire's chalk grassland area by almost a fifth. In some places the chalk is 20 metres deep. Here you can see the porous portals and the trackside West Hyde auto transformer station. You can also see the close proximity to the M25 just west of junction 17. As a train enters a tunnel at one end, it generates a pressure wave which can produce noise at the other end. This effect is mitigated by adding a porous portal. This slows the build-up of the pressure wave in the tunnel, reducing the resulting effect. The entry portal, in this case the downline, is longer than the exit. All the tunnels outside London will have porous portals. The crosses show the area we'll now be looking at from the M25 across the central Chilterns to Wendover. The next section of the route is the 10.6 mile long twin bore Chiltern Tunnel. This shows the 4 tunnel ventilation shafts across the Chilterns. There is also an intervention shaft near the North Tunnel portal at South Heath. They would also be used for emergency access during operation of the railway. The tunnels are up to 90 metres below ground, at their deepest as they pass under Gore Hill, just before reaching Amersham. The A413 is the main road passing the Chalfonts and Amersham, then on to Great Missenden and Wendover. The first shaft is the Chalfont St Peter vent shaft, situated in Chesham Lane, not far from the Chiltern Open Air Museum. This is the construction compound alongside Chesham Lane. Construction of the shaft was completed in December last year, and the shaft was handed over to HS2. All the shafts have a head house which can be seen on the right. Although technically they are single story, they are much bigger than we had anticipated. On the left is the plenum, essentially the shaft outlet. The remaining constructions are the access hatches to the basement. The 400-metre long temporary haul road that linked the site directly to the A413 is now being removed. It had been in place for more than 5 years, giving HGVs direct access to the shaft, thus avoiding using a road through a residential area. The first job was to remove the tarmac layer. Hopefully it would have been used elsewhere. It would certainly have filled a lot of potholes. The roadside bank was then rebuilt. The bell mouth was removed and the original curb line replaced. The traffic lights were removed and the road restored to its original alignment. The spoil removed when the road was constructed was then replaced. The dump truck is about to cross public footpath CSP10, which has been diverted around the site for over 6 years. This picture was taken at the beginning of July and work is still ongoing. Chalfont St Giles vent shaft is situated at the top of Bottomhouse Farm Lane. Here we're looking north towards Old Amersham. The A355 runs up Gore Hill to Beaconsfield. The shaft site is just to the north of the lane. Here we're looking north along the tunnel route as it will pass under the shaft. Construction was completed last July and the shaft handed over to HS2. This is the plenum. This shaft also has an auto transformer station. This is basically a voltage regulator. These are the basement access hatches and beyond is the head house itself. A temporary haul road half a mile long was constructed to link the site to the A413. Like the road at the Chalfont St Peter shaft, this will be removed once the plans have been approved. Will the bridge over the River Misbourne. And the traffic lights on the A413. The Amersham vent shaft is situated in Wilden Lane, just west of Amersham Hospital. The A404 goes to High Wycombe and the A413 turns right towards Great Missenden. This is the most visible and controversial of the shafts, and we'll look at the construction timeline. This was more or less the same for all vent shafts. This will be the entrance to the vent shaft from Wealden Lane. Enabling works got underway in 2020. And this is looking west across the site towards the A404. Sheet piling was then installed alongside the road. The site is quite compact and the office accommodation had to be constructed on the south side of Wealden Lane. Excavation of the shaft began in 2021. The diaphragm walling method was used to construct all the vent shafts. Murals on the hoardings surrounding the site depicted the history of Amersham. Once the shaft was constructed, work got underway in excavating the basement. As with all the vent shafts, the secant piling method was used, where the walls are constructed below ground using interlocking piles. Material was then removed, creating a basement. The tunnel boring machines, TBMs, digging the tunnels, passed under the shaft in February 2023. When this picture was taken, they had paused below the shaft for maintenance. Construction of the head house started in 2024. The size and layout of the site dictated that this had to be round. The initial design was controversial, to say the least. Following extensive consultation, the height was lowered and the fins that would have been added to the roof were removed from the design. As were the plans to illuminate it at night. A lightning protection system comprising of 600 metres of copper cable was installed and the head house was completed in 2025. A feature of the revised design is the 200-metre long boundary wall which surrounds the whole site. It is lined with 103 pre-classed flint panels which reflect the use of these stones in local buildings. Construction of the shaft was completed in November 2025 and was then handed over to HS2. The temporary compound and car park opposite the ventilation shaft will remain in place until the railway systems have been installed. Now that I've got used to it, I think the design is interesting and fits in well with the location. Here we're looking towards the plenum beyond the basement access hatches. There is no auto transformer station at this shaft. And this is looking across the basement towards the top of the shaft. This is where the fans will be installed, extracting the air from the tunnels as a train approaches, and then blowing it back once it has passed. Work to install the MEP, the mechanical and electrical plant, at all the sites will start later in the year. Stairways and lifts have been installed. Alas, the lift cannot be used, so it has to be the stairs down to see the tunnel. This is looking north in the up London bound tunnel. Hard to imagine that trains will speed through here at 200 miles an hour. The tunnels are 30 metres below ground, and this is looking up the shaft from basement level 9. This is an artist's impression of what the site would look like. And this is the reality. I think it was a very accurate depiction. "230 metres of gabion baskets filled with mixed flint line the outer perimeter of the site alongside Wilden Lane. In order to ensure long-term water management, 800 metres of drainage, gully systems, manholes and 500 metres of channel drains were installed. Once the landscaping was complete earlier this year, planting got underway. Native plants and seeds have been used to create habitats and to enhance the biodiversity value of the site. Habitats will include reptile egg-laying heaps and a reptile and invertebrate basking bank. HS2 have also undertaken long-term management of the site, guided by a habitat management plan for the lifespan of the railway. The Little Missenden vent shaft is situated alongside the dual carriageway section of the A413. Ground investigations in 2019 gave an early indication of exactly where the shaft would be situated. Excavation of the shaft got underway in 2021. A traffic light controlled right-hand turn off the dual carriageway was created, saving HGVs a 5-mile return trip to the roundabout at Great Missenden. Construction of the vent shaft was completed in December 2025. 1,700 trees are being planted, some 20 different species. Over time, the planting will ensure that the shaft will be hardly visible from the road. The left-hand building is the plenum, and next are the access hatches leading to the basement. Behind is the head house itself, and to the right is the auto transformer station. As with all the sites, the transformer will be installed outside the building behind the screening. The Chesham Road intervention shaft at South Heath is the last of the shafts. Here we are looking west along Chesham Road past the site entrance. Construction was completed in January 2026. As it is an intervention shaft only, it will not have any fans, so does not need a basement. Because the shaft is above the water table, a different form of construction, called the caisson method, was used for this shaft. Sections of the caisson were constructed above ground and then sunk to the required level by excavating material from within the caisson. Because there are no fans, there is no plenum, and because there is no basement, there are no access hatches. This shaft does have an auto transformer station. Effectively, it is two head houses, with one acting as a backup for the other. Here we can see the Chiltern Tunnel North Portal, just half a mile from the Chesham Road shaft. Sibley's Coppice is the piece of ancient woodland between the two. The portal is just north of Frith Hill, to the east of Great Missenden, which you can see at the top of the picture. The porous portals can be clearly seen. A line-side ancillary building has been constructed to the west of the track. The route continues for 2 miles in the South Heath cutting under a series of bridges. In this section, these are all overbridges, meaning that they will cross over the railway. The supports for the first of these, footpath GMI 12 overbridge, can be seen at the bottom of the picture. Looking south, this is a visualization of what the footbridge will look like. Off-site structural steelwork fabrication has been delayed, with the delivery of the bridge and deck installation due to be completed in September. In the meantime, the footpath remains closed. The tunnel portal will only be visible from this footbridge. Excavation of the cutting continues and is due to be completed by September. Further north, footpath GMI 2 accommodation overbridge is the next bridge. It is an accommodation overbridge, which means it will be used for vehicle access as well as for the footpath. The bridge is now in place, and once construction is complete, the footpath will be diverted across it. The footpath is now closed until the end of the year. Leather Lane Overbridge is the first of 3 road bridges. Originally, the bridge was to be built offline to the south of the lane, which would then have been diverted over the bridge once construction was complete, thus avoiding temporary closure of the road. As a result of sustained pressure from a local conservation group, the design was changed to a green overbridge to be constructed to the south of the existing tree line. This will minimise the visual impact on the surrounding landscape and facilitate the movement of wildlife. 16 oak trees have already been felled here, but the original plan would have seen the loss of over 80. The bridge is now in place and the wing walls have been constructed. Backfilling is underway, with the bridge due to be completed by the autumn. In the meantime, the lane remains closed. The route continues in the South Heath cutting, passing Grimsditch, where sheet piling has been installed to safeguard the remains of the Iron Age earthwork. HS2 submitted extensive landscape planting plans for the section of the route from South Heath to Wendover. As you can see, the list is very extensive. Each typology is tailored to specific ecological, visual or functional goals, such as habitat creation, screening or landscape integration. HS2 is creating over 180 new wildlife ponds as part of its Green Corridor project to mitigate the impact of railway construction on local ecosystems. Ponds are created for protected species like great crested newts. This involves ecologists attending ponds at sunset to identify the species' presence. Continuing along the route, footpath TLE2 accommodation overbridge is next. This will give the farmer vital access to the land to the west of the route. Once the bridge is completed, the footpath will be reopened and diverted across the bridge. Just to the north is the Bowood Lane overbridge. As the bridge is being built online, the road is closed during construction. Originally, it would have been closed for just 18 months, reopening in 2023. Bowood Lane remains closed and will be until August 2027. There is a large area of mitigation planting at the junction of Bowood Lane and Kings Lane. Here we're looking west towards Jones Hill Wood in 2021. HS2 will cut through the western edge of the wood. By and large, the planting has been successful. Here we're looking west along the lane towards the bridge. The same view showing the single track lane before construction began. Looking west across the bridge, which is also single track. This is the first bridge to be opened in the Chilterns and only the second north of London, albeit at the moment just for cyclists and pedestrians. The public footpath that ran alongside the lane remains open and has been diverted over the bridge with a man crossing of the Hall Road. All other footpaths crossing the route between the Chiltern Tunnel and Wendover are closed during construction, so this is a vital diversion route for some, including the very popular Chiltern Way. This is looking south along the South Heath cutting towards footpath TLE2 overbridge. And looking north along the cutting towards the Wendover Dean Viaduct. The bridge has now been tied in to the lane. This was the same view, showing the sunken lane and the wild flowers on the banks. Results of roadside replanting can now be seen. Alas, no rosebay willow herb, which was once predominant. The route continues along the South Heath cutting, past the remains of Jones Hill Wood, towards Wendover Dean Viaduct. The viaduct is clearly visible from the A413. This will be the first fleeting view passengers will have of the Chilterns since crossing the Colne Valley Viaduct. Durham Farm was demolished to make way for the viaduct and has been rebuilt to west of its original location. And this is looking northeast towards the viaduct from Bowood Lane. And west from Kings Lane. The top deck is currently being installed. This involves 19 separate concrete pours with a pause between each. This is the travelling gantry being used. Fourteen of the required 19 concrete deck pours have been completed. Construction of the robust curbs has also started. And this is just one completed section. The route leaves the viaduct on the Wendover Dean North embankment. Continuing in the Rocky Lane cutting, then on to the Small Dean South embankment as it approaches Rocky Lane. You can see the underbridge with Rocky Lane continuing along its original alignment. As it is an underbridge, it will pass under the railway. And this is looking west towards the bridge. In early June, the newly created roadside verges were awash with colour from newly planted poppies and cornflowers. Alongside the bridge to the south is the Rocky Lane culvert. Work is now underway creating the Small Dean South embankment, which will take the route over Rocky Lane and onto the Small Dean Viaduct. The machine on the left is a soil stabiliser, which is mixing chalk with cement to strengthen the embankment. Continues on the Small Dean South embankment towards the Small Dean Viaduct. Section of the viaduct is complete. It is being used as a haul route by the dump trucks. The conveyor system will now be removed. It has saved literally thousands of HGV movements along the A413. The viaduct crosses the A413 and the Chiltern Railway. The route leaves the viaduct on the Small Dean North embankment. The A413 continues as the Wendover bypass. In the distance, the Wendover Tunnel can be seen alongside Backham Lane. As you can imagine, Grove Farm has been massively impacted by construction. Grove Farm accommodation under a bridge will give access to the farm. It will also take Small Dean Lane under the route on a new alignment. The bridge can be seen from the A413 roundabout. The route continues on the Small Dean North embankment past Grove Farm. Like the South embankment, it is being built using layers of crushed chalk bound with cement and will rise up to 14 metres above the current ground level, acting as a dam for water running off the adjacent fields, diverting it to the north. A massive underground storage tank, known as the Grove Farm Attenuation Chamber, has been created alongside the embankment. This is now finished and has been covered over. It will drain into a 2.4 metre diameter culvert, which is currently being tunnelled from an access shaft next to Backham Lane. The access shaft at the southern end is just to the north of the chamber. The northern end of the culvert will be beyond Aylesbury Road. Continuing on the Small Dean North embankment, the route approaches the cut and cover Wendover Green Tunnel. Just south of Backham Lane. Designed as a double arch, the tunnel will have two separate halves for southbound and northbound trains. 5 different concrete precast segments are slotted together to achieve the double arch. Each one will be steel reinforced, with the largest weighing 43 tonnes. Over 2,500 segments will be used. They are being made by Stanton Precast in Ilkeston, Derbyshire, and transported by road. This was looking east along Backham Lane in 2020, trying to imagine just what the tunnel would look like. and this is the reality. The tunnel is being constructed in 5 phases. As each phase is completed, backfilling gets underway, with large quantities of aggregate being slowly positioned as the first step in the cover process. Great care is taken with the loading on the shell to avoid another Tesco tunnel collapse, as that tunnel was being built over the Chiltern line at Gerrard's Cross in 2005. Backham Lane is now closed until the end of the year. A temporary link road has been built connecting the lane to Aylesbury Road. At the request of local residents, it is single track with a public bridleway alongside. Here we're looking south along the link road from Aylesbury Road. The tunnel continues on towards Aylesbury Road. Here is 29 metres deep as it passes under the temporary utility overbridge. Obviously, Aylesbury Road is closed during construction and has been diverted to the north, crossing over the cutting on a Bailey bridge. Six houses were demolished here to make way for the cutting. Here you can see some of the segments waiting to be installed. Each section consists of 2 curved outer segments, the central segments and 2 top segments. These are normally installed by a huge crane. This is not possible under the 2 Aylesbury Road bridges. Instead, a self-propelled modular transporter, an SPMT, is used. Here the crane is loading a top segment onto the transporter. This then turns round and heads for the tunnel. It is driven remotely and all the wheels turn independently. The segment is then carefully placed into position. It has to be millimetre perfect. And this shows a central segment being unloaded. It's then manoeuvred with the crane. And then gently placed into position. A much quicker process than using the transporter. The procedure will be followed with this outer segment. The transporter will be used again as the tunnel passes under the Aylesbury Road diversion. All the segments are delivered successfully, and some have had to be broken up on site. Beyond Aylesbury Road, the landscaping is changing as the final cover material is positioned, ready to be moved into place. The tunnel base slab is now being installed by these reversible off-road mixers. Backfilling here has now reached the top of the tunnel, and you can see quite clearly how much the tunnel curves. The final sections at the north portal are now being installed. The route leaves the tunnel and continues into the Wendover North cutting. To the east of the A413, a spring chamber has been constructed. Its purpose is to increase the flow of water into the Stoke Brook ditch beside the King's Farm shop from the historic spring location in Rushy Meadow. This is to mitigate the impact of the Wendover North cutting, reducing groundwater flows from the Colne Hill aquifer that go into the Wendover and Stoke brooks. It will do this by reducing the effective ground level through use of a perforated underground concrete chamber without fall into the lower ditch. A second chamber houses solar-powered flow metering so that the height of a dam inside the main chamber can be adjusted to optimise the volume of seasonal groundwater that goes into the brook. The Environment Agency requires the system to be functioning by the end of August, so that the winter 26-27 groundwater annual recharge cycle can be monitored. This will allow time for any redesign of the north cutting and additional civil engineering if needed. The cutting continues towards the B4009 Nashley Road. The road is currently diverted over another Bailey Bridge across the cutting. Nashley Road overbridge is now in place. Once completed, the road will be realigned across it, joining the A413 at the roundabout. The route continues on towards Stoke Mandeville. Following an 18-month programme reset, HS2 has established a new cost baseline and revised delivery schedule with a clear commitment to transparency and responsible use of taxpayer funding. I would have hoped and assumed that that would always have been the case. The total cost range will be between 87 and 102 billion pounds. Initial services between Old Oak Common and Birmingham Curzon Street will start between May 2036 and October 2039. The full scheme opens between May 2040 and December 2043. When first announced, the plan was for trains to be running from this year. It will operate at speeds up to 320 kilometers an hour, in line with European high-speed rail, down from the initial 400 kilometers an hour first envisaged. You can see most of the pictures I've used by visiting the HS2 photo diary on the Chiltern Society website. This shows the impact at a number of locations across both the Chilterns and the Colne Valley Regional Park and is constantly updated. There are also links to various videos, including a virtual fly-through along the route from Denham and on to Calvert beyond Aylesbury. The next update, the 13th, will be on January the 16th, 2027.